My brother demanded that I make my house child free because he didn't want to see me take care of another man's responsibility. So I laughed in his face and exposed his wife's filthy secret. Now everyone's calling me the a-hole because his life is falling apart. I'm a 38-year-old man who grew up in a small, tight-knit town where everyone knew everyone else's business. It was the kind of place where people still waved to their neighbors from their front porches, and Sunday potlucks were the highlight of the week. My brother Alan is just 1 year older than me. Growing up, Alan and I were inseparable. We played in the same Little League baseball team, faced our parents' lectures and scoldings together, and even navigated the roller coaster ride of teenage years side by side. We understood each other on a level that only siblings can, offering a comforting presence in each other's lives as an adult. Up until a few years ago, we still shared family traditions, celebrated holidays together, and always looked out for each other no matter what. We were like two peas in a pod, sticking together through all the ups and downs life threw at us as kids. Alan and I had always discussed our love for New York and planned to move out there. Being the oldest, he was the first one to make the bold move. I admired his courage in taking that big step, and a couple of months later, I decided to follow in his footsteps. We both found ourselves in the city that we had dreamed about. Rooming together in a small apartment, we tirelessly looked for jobs so we could support ourselves while I secured a position as a graphic designer, which was a dream come true for me. Alan found himself working as an accountant. Our jobs were not glamorous, and we struggled a lot during the initial days. It wasn't easy to live in a new city, working in jobs that sometimes went overtime and paid too little, but we were pretty glad to have each other to depend on. My life had taken a wonderful turn a year ago when I met my amazing wife, Lisa. She was a single mom to her then 2-year-old son, Mark. Although I had a stable job, I still wasn't looking to settle down. But everything changed when I met her. I had never imagined marrying a single mother, but once I started interacting with her son, Mark, I instantly fell in love with how adorable he was. I just couldn't fathom why Lisa's ex-boyfriend, who was the father of Mark, could abandon his own child and not even bother contacting them. After several months of dating, I knew she was the one. Her kindness and love won me over, and I proposed to her with my mother's ring. She said yes, and we have had a wonderful marriage for the last 6 years. Her son has quickly become a treasured part of my world, and I have embraced the role of being his stepfather. The love and care I feel for this young boy is just like what I would have felt for him if he were my biological child. I had always dreamed of having my own family one day, and I absolutely love them both to bits. Meanwhile, Alan had always held some reservations about Lisa and didn't shy away from sharing his concerns with me. Since the first day he met her, he never quite liked the fact that she was a single mother, and his disapproval had come up in our conversations more times than I could count. I often found myself brushing it off, thinking it was just Alan's way of being an overprotective older brother worrying about my happiness. We'd had many conversations where I made it crystal clear that I loved being a father to Mark and that Lisa meant the world to me, no matter the circumstances. I told him time and again that my love for her and her son transcended such trivial concerns. Alan had also met his now wife, Sarah, through his network of work friends. Their love story was like something out of a romantic comedy, where workplace acquaintances turned into lifelong partners. The chemistry between them was undeniable, and it didn't take long for their friendship to blossom into something much more significant. I've spent my fair share of time with Sarah over the years, but we never really bonded much. You see, Sarah had a serious drinking issue, which sometimes led to her getting angry and blurting out a lot of secrets that she would later claim she couldn't remember. On one such occasion, while we were all out drinking and when my brother wasn't around, she confessed that he had trouble satisfying her in bed. Apparently, he was struggling to maintain his performance, and this left her wanting more. She mentioned how she had been hooking up with strangers. Sometimes I was taken aback by what I heard, and the next day, after we were both sober, I decided to confront her about it. I didn't want to bring this up to my brother without confirming first, as I knew how much he loved her and it could potentially ruin their relationship. Sarah denied ever saying such things and swiftly changed the topic. I decided to let it slide at the time, as I couldn't do anything, especially when I had no proof. If I did tell my brother, then He could have chalked it up to her talking gibberish while she was drunk. Although I let it go at that moment, those words have always lingered in the back of my mind all these years. As a result, Eve always kept my distance from her since then. Now coming on to the incident that happened this week. Every year, our family from all over the country travels back to our hometown, no matter where we are, to celebrate my mother's birthday. It's become a family tradition now, and it's something we have been doing for as long as I can remember. No matter where we are or how busy life gets, we make sure to mark that special day by being with our mother. This year, I decided to take an earlier flight, so I arrived in our hometown before everyone else. You see, Lisa and Mark were scheduled to fly in a bit later because Mark had this important school assignment to finish and hand in. So I had some time to spend with our family before they got there. Alan and Sarah made it too, and it was shaping up to be a great get-together. We were all looking forward to spending some quality time together. The atmosphere was filled with laughter, stories, and that feeling of togetherness that only a family gathering can bring. Just a few days before my mom's birthday, I drove to the airport to pick up Lisa and Mark, even though we had only been apart for a few days. As soon as Mark saw me, he sprinted towards me with his arms wide open. The pure joy on his face made my heart swell with happiness. We drove back home where my parents welcomed them with open arms. Mark had always been a favorite in my family, and my parents treated him like their own grandson. In fact, my father had even spoken with me this time about having Mark spend holidays with them, so he could learn valuable skills while helping out on our family farm. Of course, my father would pay him for his work, but it was also about teaching Mark important life lessons. On the other hand, I noticed that Alan didn't get up to greet my wife and son. Sarah, who was helping my mother out in the kitchen with the preparations, rushed to hug them. I thought maybe Alan was just tired that day from helping around the house, so I didn't pay it much mind. The big day arrived, and we had all worked hard the night before to make sure everything was ready so my mom wouldn't have to lift a finger on her special day. Our close relatives and my mom's old college friends started showing up, and everything was going great. Some of the guests had children of their own, and I introduced Mark to them. The kids quickly ran off to play around our farm, shouting and having a good time. We gathered to have lunch, enjoying the well-cooked meal, when suddenly we heard Mark scream. Lisa and I rushed outside to find him on the ground with scraped knees. It turned out the kids were playing on the swing, and as kids do, someone had given him an accidental push. The entire group had rushed outside as well, looking concerned. That's when Alan, out of nowhere, said, "Well, if he was really your son, he would know that men don't cry over little things like this. Why are you even taking care of some other man's responsibility?" Everyone fell into an eerie silence. Blood drained from my face as I couldn't believe what my brother had just spoken. My parents stared at him wide-eyed, horrified by what he had said. Lisa, meanwhile, looked like she was on the verge of tears as she tended to Mark's wounds. My anger was boiling over, and for the first time in ages, I had an urge to punch my brother standing up. I couldn't hold back, and I spat out, "What would you even know about having a child of your own? You struggle with erectile dysfunction, and this is why your wife cheats on you." I saw my brother's face change color, and he looked like he had been punched in the gut. Sarah looked around, embarrassed. I smirked and quickly scooped up Mark, who was still crying in pain, to make my way inside. If my brother could utter such cruel words in front of my son, I didn't want to be around him anymore. My son deserved better than this. So I told everyone we would be leaving. I rushed to pack our things as Lisa tried to change our flight booking to head back home. Thankfully, the airline accommodated our request to change our return dates. I went downstairs to talk to some of the guests so I could tell them goodbye before we headed to the airport. Some of them understood my sudden departure and let me know that I was doing the right thing. My mother, however, was doing her best to convince me to stay and let go of the situation. I told her it would never happen until my brother apologized for his insensitive comments about my son. After leaving my parents' house with Lisa and Mark, I tried to move on with my life, but the resentment over Alan's words still burned inside me. What bothered me the most wasn't just what he said, but what it represented. To him, taking care of Mark was humiliating. And worse, he threw that in my face in front of the entire family. Something changed in me that day. I decided that if he didn't value our relationship as brothers or respect my family, I had no reason to keep any ties with him. In the following weeks, our mother kept calling, begging me to reconsider and let the incident go. She claimed Alan was going through a tough time, and I had been too harsh by exposing his secret, saying now he was devastated. But to me, that was just a cheap excuse. If he had the nerve to humiliate my son, he could deal with the consequences. And it didn't stop there. I found out from relatives that Sarah had filed for divorce just days after the incident. They told me she stormed out of the house, saying she couldn't stand living with someone who embarrassed her, especially now that everyone knew about the cheating and his intimate problems. It didn't take long for Alan's entire social circle to hear the story, and soon, he became a laughingstock among friends and co-workers. The pride he had always flaunted in front of me turned into public shame. But don't think he kept quiet. Alan began sending me furious messages, blaming me for ruining his marriage and humiliating him. He sent things like, "You destroyed my life. I hope you're happy with yourself. Sarah left, and now she wants half of everything I worked for. All of this happened because of a brat that isn't even yours." I ran out of patience. Instead of replying, I blocked him on everything. I made it clear to our mother that I didn't want any contact with Alan until he gave me a real apology, which of course never happened. As far as I was concerned, he stopped being my brother the moment he placed his wounded pride above my son. As time went by, news of Alan's downfall spread. He lost his job as an accountant, supposedly because his firm wanted to avoid the bad publicity caused by his personal scandal. To make things worse, Sarah not only demanded half his assets, but also left him homeless. Alan had to move back in with our parents, who were trying to pick up the pieces of his life while pleading with me to forgive him. And then came the ultimate irony. A few months later, my mother called, saying Alan was in serious financial trouble and needed help. He was broke, jobless, and Sarah had taken nearly everything. And guess who they expected to help him? Me. "Lucas, you need to let the past go. He's your brother, and he's suffering. He has no one else but us now." I had to hold back my laughter. They really expected me to help the same man who ridiculed my son, the same man who insulted me in front of everyone. Still, I didn't hold back in my response. "So, he finally knows what it feels like to lose everything because of someone else? How ironic, huh?" My mother kept insisting that family should help in difficult times, but I had already closed that door. I explained that my priority was my wife and son, and that Alan, just like me, had to face the consequences of his choices. A few weeks later, I got an unexpected message from Sarah. She wanted to meet up, saying she needed to talk. I found it strange but agreed. We met at a quiet cafe, where she dropped a bombshell. Alan was trying to sue me and Lisa, claiming we had damaged his reputation and caused him financial losses by exposing his personal life. "He wants you to pay compensation, Lucas. He's saying that because of you, he lost his job and his marriage." I didn't know whether to laugh or be even more furious. It wasn't enough that Alan had tried to tear down my family emotionally. Now he was trying to ruin us financially too. I looked at Sarah, dumbfounded, and asked, "And what about you? Are you supporting him in this madness?" She shook her head and gave me a sly smile. "No, I came to warn you because I want him to crash and burn. After everything he did, I hope he rots alone." That was the final straw for me. I hired a lawyer to ensure Alan wouldn't get a cent from me. And, of course, I made sure to spread the word about his pathetic attempt at a lawsuit among our relatives. Now, he wasn't just the cheated and broke man. He was also the ungrateful brother trying to milk money from the only person who ever cared about him. While Alan sank deeper into debt and loneliness, my life flourished. My design business thrived, and Lisa and I were planning to have another child. Mark was growing up happy and healthy, surrounded by love. I never had to prove to anyone that he was my son in every way that mattered. Our bond spoke for itself. Last Christmas, my mother made one last desperate attempt, calling me again. "Alan is spending Christmas alone. Lucas, he has no one. Please, son, at least talk to him." I took a deep breath and replied calmly, "He made his choice, Mom. Now he has to live with it." I hung up the phone, feeling an indescribable sense of peace. There was no longer any room in my life for people who didn't value my family. My focus was where it always should have been, on Lisa, Mark, and building a future full of love and respect. As for Alan, he remained exactly where he belonged. In the past, drowning in the consequences of his own actions, never understanding that love and family aren't measured by blood but by respect and deeds. After everything, the decision was clear. My real family was Lisa, Mark, and me. The rest were just relatives, people connected to us by blood, not by love or respect. I was tired of carrying burdens that weren't mine and accepting empty apologies for unforgivable behavior. It was time to free myself from those emotional chains and focus only on us, as it always should have been. In the weeks that followed, I cut off contact with everyone. I blocked Alan from all social media and told my mother I wouldn't take any more calls from her if they involved him. I made it clear that I wouldn't let toxic people disrupt our peace and happiness. You'll always be my son, and I love you, but I can't let Alan or the past hurt us anymore, I told her, putting an end to that conversation. She cried over the phone, but there were no more attempts to persuade me. I knew I was doing the right thing. The guilt I had carried for years, trying to meet family expectations, dissolved. It was never my job to fix what others had broken. Lisa and I took this opportunity to rearrange our lives. We decided to move to a quieter area, far from the city center and the negative influence of relatives. The new house was small and cozy, surrounded by trees, with plenty of space for Mark to play freely. We painted the walls together, decorated each room with care, and made it into a real home, a home for us. Over time, Mark grew up happy and surrounded by love. I never needed anyone's approval to prove what it meant to be his father. Our moments together spoke louder than any title or opinion. On weekends, we played soccer in the backyard, watched movie marathons, and I taught him how to draw. Those little moments were everything to me. We also distanced ourselves from family gatherings and holidays. No more reunions filled with tension and false smiles. That year for Christmas, while everyone expected us to join the usual family celebrations, we did something different. We rented a cabin in the mountains, just the three of us. On Christmas Eve, as snow fell outside, we lit the fireplace, opened presents, and toasted with hot chocolate. Mark hugged me, his eyes sparkling with joy, and said, "Dad, this is the best Christmas ever." In that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. My happiness was right here with them. Isolated from external interference, my design business thrived more than ever. With more time and fewer distractions, I focused on growing the business, and soon new opportunities came our way. Lisa was also flourishing, returning to her studies and launching her own online store, something she had always dreamed of doing. As the years passed, we achieved things we had only dreamed of. We built a stable and comfortable life without relying on anyone. Mark grew up knowing that family isn't just about blood, but about who stands by you during tough times and loves you unconditionally. I taught him that he didn't need to live up to other people's expectations. He just needed to be an honest and respectful person. Occasionally, there were attempts to reconnect. My parents sent messages trying to restore some kind of relationship, always bringing up Alan, as if I owed him something. They told me he was spiraling out of control, deeper into his own mistakes, and desperately needed help. I read those messages and deleted them without replying. I felt no anger, only a quiet detachment. Alan and the rest of the relatives were no longer part of our story. As time went by, Mark entered his teenage years. It was then that the weight of my decisions became clear, but in a good way. I felt proud to see him grow into a strong, confident, and independent young man. He knew that love wasn't earned with words or empty promises. It was shown through actions, day by day. That was what Lisa and I had given him. One day, when Mark was 16, he casually asked me, "Dad, why don't we talk to the rest of the family?" I thought for a moment and answered, "Because family, son, is who loves and respects you. And that's us. The rest, they're just relatives." He smiled and nodded, as if he finally understood. I knew then that, no matter who was absent from his life, he would never feel incomplete. We were enough. Years later, Alan lost everything. He never managed to rebuild his life. And the last thing we heard about him was that he was living off favors from friends, always relying on other people's generosity. The messages and pleas for help stopped coming, and finally, silence settled over everything. I never felt any remorse. Everyone chooses their own path, and Alan had chosen his. Meanwhile, Lisa and I finally achieved our dreams. We saved enough to travel the world, and when Mark graduated from high school, we took a long family trip, starting with Europe. I remember the joy in Mark's eyes as we walked through the streets of Paris, trying new foods and laughing together as if nothing else in the world mattered. In the end, cutting ties had been the best decision we ever made. We built a true family, one based on love and mutual respect, free from the weight of people who only drained our energy. I learned that sometimes, to live fully, you have to walk away from everything that ties you to the past. Today, when I look back, I don't miss anyone. I don't miss the fake family gatherings, the impossible expectations, or the relatives who only knew how to demand. My family is Lisa and Mark, and it always will be.